Their flight on board the Orbiter Atlantis on the mission of STS-135. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce that crew at this time. Our mission commander, Chris Ferguson, our pilot, Doug Hurley, and mission specialists, Rex Walheim and Sandy Magnus.
Well, hey, good morning. Boy, what a great day! You know, this is just gorgeous. What a fitting day, I think, to come out here and witness Atlantis' ride out to the new visitor center. You heard the introductions, but I'll just quickly go over everybody. Of course, Chris Ferguson. I was fortunate enough to be the commander of Atlantis' last flight. Doug Hurley was a pilot. Sandy Magnus, mission specialist, and Rex Walheim. We just had an opportunity to go and watch Atlantis roll out in front of the headquarters building there, and it looks a lot prettier in the vertical, but I'll tell you, under the circumstances, being able to see it there again for us, I think it was very special. You know, of course, we have an attachment. I was fortunate enough to fly Atlantis a couple different times, and I think we have a. I know Rex only flies Atlantis down at the end there, so he's got a few stories to share. But you know, I figured maybe we would all just take a moment and maybe share one of the memories we have of being a part of the last crew. Maybe give you a little bit of insight about what really happened on the mission, as opposed to what showed up perhaps in the media or on television. And I'll tell you my story. We were fortunate enough to have a couple interviews with some high-profile individuals while we were up there, and one of them, the president called, and I was given very specific instructions to produce a flag that had flown on STS-1, and we were directed to leave it up there on the International Space Station for the day that another crew who launched on an American spacecraft would retrieve it. So it's still sitting up there waiting for someone to come up and get it, and there's a few companies trying really hard to do that. But like I said, I was given very specific instructions to produce this flag during the interview, and about halfway through the interview, when President Obama made reference to a flag, it was at precisely that moment that I realized I had forgotten it. So my wife said she watched the interview, and she wondered, because I covered so well for the fact that I had forgotten what I was supposed to remember, that she was wondering why the startled look showed up on my face. And I said that I had to do some very quick tap dancing on why I couldn't produce the flag that the president had just mentioned in his remarks. But it's safely up there, and we're eagerly looking forward to a couple companies. You can see SpaceX right here. Of course, that's Orion, Boeing, Sierra Nevada, all vying for the business to get American astronauts back up to low Earth orbit again. So it's sitting up there waiting for the day that it returns, or that somebody returns to get it and bring it home. So without further ado, let me go ahead and pass it down to Doug Hurley. Perhaps he's got something to share with us.
Yeah, it's funny. We only have a few minutes, but I just wanted to share with you a quick story. During the middle of the mission, we had a GPC, a computer failure, while we were sleeping. And I don't know if this has happened to anybody on Earth, but it happens in space as well, where there's a noise and you wake up and then you go, oh, I'm in space. Uh-oh, that's an alarm. And then I looked across the middeck where we were sleeping, and I see Chris's head pop out of his sleeping bag, and he's looking at me with that same look like, what's that noise? We're in space. What's going on? So anyway, we obviously none of this, we didn't have a camera, we didn't film this, but it must have been hilarious watching us all kind of singing out of our sleeping bags and coming up to the middeck. So Chris and I go up to the flight deck and start working the procedure, and then Rex, he's one that'll stay up really late, but sometimes he gets up kind of tough. So he woke up a little bit later, and his head pops up through the ladder, and he says, hey, what's going on, you know? And then Sandy, who was sleeping on station, it's the same thing. She comes flying in and goes, what's going on, you know? So then we had to deal with a computer failure, but it was just funny how, just like on Earth, you wake up, you don't know where you are, and it takes you a few minutes to figure it out. But we had a great time. The ground was actually the night shift in mission control, and they did a great job talking us through it. And I'll just pass it over to Sandy.
Well, I have a couple of memories to share. One is during the training. You know, we were the last mission, and so it was a little bit difficult during the training to have to say goodbye to people so often, because we were the last ones to do almost, well, every event. last ones to do the last motion base, last ones to come down here and do CEIT. And it was a constant theme that was threading through our mission, was having to say goodbye to a lot of really dedicated, enthusiastic, passionate people. And I think the memory that I will keep with me forever is just how excited everybody was to be a part of the shuttle program all the way to the end, even though that meant a lot of perhaps uncomfortable and uncertain things for people's lives. But the enthusiasm and the positive attitude and the excitement was there to the end. And I think that's something that I'll carry with me forever, because it just says a lot about the space workforce and a lot about the people that get involved in the space program. It's a very special group of people, and I want to thank you all for that memory and for everything that you did to make the program so successful and this mission end on such a good note for the program. And on orbit, you know, there was only 4 of us, and we had all of this stuff to transfer, thousands and thousands of pounds to transfer. And we opened up the MPLM and we got started, and I remember thinking after about a day and a half, it's like, we are not going to get this done. There is too much here, there's just too much to do. And I'm thinking that to myself, and meanwhile I'm telling Fergie, I think we can get it done, I think we can get it done. I'm thinking, oh my goodness, we're not going to get it done. We were so incredibly busy, that whole mission, just moving stuff everywhere, back and forth, and finding things, and putting things away, and figuring out where to put things when they didn't fit where they were supposed to fit, that there was really no time to savor being up there. And so what I did in order to appreciate, you know, being in space for what was going to be the last time for me was I didn't go to bed when I was supposed to go to bed. You know, I stayed over on the space station, and I spent a couple hours every night, you know, 3 or 4 nights in a row up in the cupola, watching the world go by. You know, it takes 90 minutes to go around the world, so I spent in orbit at least watching the world go by, just trying to savor that last time being in such a special place. And those are the memories I think that are the strongest from being up on the space station, being incredibly busy, getting everything done, and just taking some time to savor it. I'll go ahead and pass it off to Rex.
I think one of the things I learned on this mission was that when your commander and the pilot say, hey, wouldn't it be neat if, and ... and when they say that, you ought to be very careful. Because partway through our training program, I think it was them that came with the idea, wouldn't it be neat during the fly around of the space station if we pitched the space station 90 degrees and then flew around it the other direction like nobody ever has before? We'll have all these great pictures, and we'll have all this great video, and you know, to tell you the truth, I kind of thought, yeah, you know, that would be pretty cool. So we had this great plan set up where we had cameras in the windows, video cameras, we had still cameras, and it was going to go just perfectly, and it shouldn't be any big problem. And my job was to fire this handheld laser, kind of like a policeman's speed gun, and so I'd fire it and tell how far we are from the space station and whether we're getting closer or farther away, because it's very important that we stay outside of a certain amount of feet from the station. And so we got up there and everything's going pretty good. We undock, and then the station starts to turn around, and it really was cool. And then we start moving around the space station, and all our sensors start falling offline. And what was really cool became a little bit stressful, as all of a sudden all the other sensors were gone. And so now I had to shoot this handheld laser at the space station and tell them how far we were, because it started looking like we're getting a little bit too close. And so I'm shooting my laser gun, and it wasn't registering. I was shooting off various places. The solar arrays were blocking most of the space station. And every time I'd miss, the gun would go, and so I'm trying a whole bunch of times. Everybody hears the and Fergie, our commander, starts getting a little bit concerned about the fact that we're getting closer to the space station. He doesn't know how far we're off. And he's going, I need a mark, I need a mark. And so I was shooting, and finally we got some marks. But for a while there, he was just right behind me. And I'm like, Captain, I'm trying as hard as I can. I felt like Scotty on Star Trek. But finally we made it around. So if your commander and your pilot say, hey, wouldn't it be neat if, just be very careful when you're flying in space.
So there you go. Those are those priceless behind, and disregard what the man down at the end of the string says. I was very calm and composed the entire time. Actually, there are, you know, for every moment that's stressful up there, there's probably 100 that are just absolutely priceless. You know, having a chance to look down at the Earth really makes you proud to be an American in this incredible program that we put together. We had a lot of questions over the course of our one-year training flow, and then of course we had kind of a lengthy post-flight, and a lot of them all surrounded the fact of well, what's next for America? And we found ourselves as sort of the de facto spokesman for a decision that had been made long before we had come into the scene, and that was to retire the space shuttle. So what we tried to do is, instead of focusing on what comes next, we tried to make the final shuttle flight really what it was to us, and that was a celebration of 30+ years of payload deployments, space station construction, scientific discovery. And even though we have a small gap ahead of us, as for those of you who may have had the opportunity to listen to Charlie Bolden's remarks, every program has a little bit of gap. We're suffering through it, but I think you see around here evidence that there are a lot of folks working really hard to get us back in a permanent presence, or at least a permanent ability to go back and forth to low Earth orbit again. But anyhow, it's just nice. It's nice to be out here on this gorgeous day to watch Atlantis roll over. It's always great to be next to a space shuttle. I liken it to a campfire. You just can't take your eyes off them. Everyone is beautiful, and what I find most amazing of them is the scars that they bear from however many space flights that they've done. And it's actually something that's back here on Earth that we have a chance to look at and touch. That's been in space, over the course of several decades. So, speaking on behalf of the crew, we were enormously proud to be a part of it. We were sad to see it go away, but we understand that every vehicle has its time, and it now will continue in its second life, hopefully for decades to come, in what is absolutely gorgeous visitor center that Delaware North is putting together. It'll be a very, very fitting tribute, I think, to the incredible program that was the space shuttle, and it'll be an attraction here on the Florida coast, I'm sure, for decades to come. So, with that, thank you. I don't know what our agenda has. Do we want to entertain some questions, or would you just like us to go ahead and get up and walk away? Okay, the Lieutenant Governor is here, so we're off the stage. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.